So, hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Project Influencers. My name is Franz, and this is my first ever collab in my YouTube channel. So I have John here from the John on Fire channel. I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel down below, and I'm going to let him introduce himself as well.
Hey guys, my name's John. If you guys don't know me, from John on Fire, and this is my first collab, and I'm ready to do it. So yeah, this is really exciting. Thanks, Franz, for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining. So I guess I'll sort of start it off because I know our mutual interest is the FIRE movement. I know my channel deviates a little bit in the cryptocurrency space, but my sole core is the FIRE movement. That's how I got into investing in the first place. I mean, even back then I was doing stocks in FIRE, but I sort of deviated now that I've gained more knowledge in the space. But maybe you can start off, and then I'll tell my story later on. But maybe you can start off on how you found out about FIRE, what sort of drove you to that movement, and then why you're even doing it in the first place instead of maybe explain what FIRE is for people that don't even know what that is. Maybe
right. Yeah, sure, definitely. Thanks, Franz. So FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early, and it's a movement in which people aggressively save money and invest aggressively in order to be financially independent and possibly retire early. And now there's different types of FIRE. There's lean FIRE, there's regular FIRE, there's fat FIRE, there's coast FIRE. But I think at the core, the movement is all about saving saving money aggressively and investing aggressively so you can live the life that you want to live. I think that one thing that is common amongst all of the people in FIRE is that they don't want to be stuck doing something like their job forever, and they want to branch out and do things like travel or pursue their passions or maybe start a business. And the FIRE movement is a tool that enables them to do that. I know that some people tend to emphasize the retire early part. For me personally, I am investing the financial independence part. I consider myself coast FIRE, so I don't really think that I'm going to ever retire, but rather I want to shape my FIRE journey around the fact that I want to pursue my passion, which is healthcare policy. And I don't want a paycheck to limit my ability to pursue my passions. And that's why I'm pursuing FIRE.
Okay. How old were you when you sort of got into the movement? So how many years ago, and how many years have you been in this movement?
Right. So I'm actually 26 now, and I heard about FIRE about a year ago. In fact, it's been less than a year. I think I started FIRE around August of 2019, so it's definitely been less than a year. And it was right at the transition where I just closed on my first property, which is the property that I'm in now.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, I was just like, you know what, this is a new beginning. And at that point, I was kind of starting at zero because I made the mistake of dipping into my emergency fund. So I literally was at zero after I bought my first property. And I was like, you know what, now would be a good time to start, the FIRE movement and getting myself back on track.
Nice.
Yeah. So what about you?
Yeah. For me, I learned about FIRE. If I were to put a year to it, I believe it was sometime around late 2017. So it was late 2017 when I learned about it. And, honestly, to be honest with you guys, like growing up, I wasn't really the frugal type, right? I remember back in college, I would eat out a lot. So, I mean, I was living off student loans back then. And so I was not minimalist or frugal at all. I remember my first year in corporate America, that was early 2016. I voluntarily lived paycheck to paycheck, but that was on purpose. I would take my paycheck and go out to bars and spend $100 over the weekend, just drinking, eating out. So yeah, it really took me until later in my second year in corporate America before I started to realize that, okay, well, slow down. I'm never going to achieve my goals of financial independence if I keep living this way. So second year in corporate, I found out about FIRE because I got into YouTube and then travel blogging. So I started to bench watch a lot of travel bloggers, and I was like, oh my gosh, their life is so amazing. I can't believe they're in the Philippines, they're in Vietnam, they're in Bali, just enjoying themselves. And then their cost of living is $1,000 a month and they're living a happy life. So I was like, okay, so I want to be able to do that, but I'm not ready to quit my job right now and then do it right off the bat. So what's the quickest way to do it? So I spent so much time researching, hey, should I say about maybe 1 year and then quit my job? And then, while doing research, I found out about the FIRE community. So, I told myself, okay, well, I'm not the type of person that I'm ultra risky to where I'm just going to save up 24 months worth of income and then just quit and go to Bali or Philippines. So for me, I'm trying to save up $1,000 a month, and then I'll quit the job and then pursue my dreams of travel blogging and whatever I want to do basically. So it's not really the retirement part of FIRE that I'm catching, because for me, retirement is not even in my mind. It's sort of pursuing the passion of traveling. So that's how I got into the FIRE movement.
Right, of course. And I think that's really important what you said about pursuing your dreams of traveling, because I think at the core of it, the FIRE movement is centered around pursuing your dreams. How do you want to live your life? We only have a limited number of years, and that's kind of morbid to say, but because we only have a limited number of years, I think that the emphasis is putting value in time. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily want to work behind a desk, for the rest of their life doing a job that doesn't necessarily make them feel fulfilled. And for that reason, a lot of people pursue FIRE, whether it's to travel or to pursue their passions. I know personally, I want to travel the world, and we can talk more about how we're planning on traveling and stuff like that. But yeah, just staying back on topic, traveling and pursuing my interests is the main reason why I'm doing FIRE.
Right. Okay. And I think sort of, once we get into FIRE, it's a very sexy movement when you first learn about it. A bunch of millennials quitting their jobs in their early 30s, early 40s. But really, once you get in it, you start to realize that this thing is not as easy as reading blogs. So psychologically, right, like especially like me, I'm used to spending so much money drinking, going out on the weekends. So switching from that lifestyle to sort of, I've went 360, right, from 2017 to now it's 2020. I don't do those things anymore, and I've had many months where I've saved 50% of my income, like many months. So how do you transition from going from like living normal per se, and then like also maintaining a happy lifestyle, right? Because like no one wants to live in ramen noodles and just stay in their corner of their house all day, like with no social life. That's, I guess, not even worth it, right? Can you imagine spending 10 years in fire just eating ramen and staying in the corner of your
Yeah.
house? It's not even worth
So
it. How do you maintain this movement and also pursue that dream?
So the biggest thing for me is just cultivating this idea of minimalism. Now, minimalism isn't necessarily something in which I feel like I'm depriving myself of life's joys. It's more so understanding what I value in life. So right now I don't have like a very luxurious lifestyle, but at my heart, I do still feel like blessed and fortunate. And another thing too is like there are certain things that I am willing to pay money for, and there's certain things that I'm like, you know what, like this money could be going towards my FIRE goals. I think a big thing for me is a big thing for me for preventing burnout during this like FIRE movement is spending money on the things that I value. So I tend to spend my money on experiences versus just like random like material things. And I think that helps me feel fulfilled in life, and I don't feel the impulse to like go out and spend tons of money. Um, I think I think that it's good to treat yourself in the bar or go for a cup of coffee every once in a while. But I don't think that you should feel like you're depriving yourself, but rather that finances are something that's empowering. And I think that once you align your life with your values, pursuing the path of FIRE is much easier.
Right.
How about you?
Yeah, so for me, I sort of agree with what you said, valuing experiences over materialistic things, because for me, how psychologically I was able to pursue that, going from spending $100 every weekend at the bar and random whatever things that I buy on the weekends. For me, it's travel, right? So I always, unfortunately, now in 2020, we can't really travel, but back then, 2019, 2018, I would always have something booked right ahead of time. So maybe I have a busy January through April, because I'm in accounting, so January through April is busy for me, so I can't even travel anyway. So I'll have something booked in May, right? So May, I'll travel somewhere. But so on the weekends, right? On the weekends, it's easier for me to not spend $100 on random things, because I know that $100 for me, ultimately, I will enjoy more, experiencing that in Bali and Ukraine and Poland, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So for me, I tell myself that, right? It's delayed gratification, it may suck that I'm seeing all my Facebook friends like partying, bottle service every weekend, but like for me personally, I think Bali, Ukraine, like those are much more fulfilling than like going out every weekend and spending $100. So I mean, I know I have a lot of, compared to my friends, I've traveled to more country compared to all of my friends now. So I think just like telling myself that for me, travel is a much more better experience than like dropping random useless things every weekend. So that's how I sort of maintain course. So
Do you have any like creative ways on how to save money that like help you achieve FIRE like faster, accelerate your journey?
yeah, so obviously, for those of us in the FIRE community for a long time now, we know the big three, right? So rent is number one, and then number two would be food, and then number three would be transportation. So ultimately, for me, I cut off rent because I moved in with my family. So rent is basically gone, right? That's basic. A lot of people, rent is 20-30% of their income. So that's 30% of my income that I've saved automatically just by cutting off rent. Obviously, for people that are watching this that may have kids, like that are married, it's a lot harder to move in. Like you guys can be creative. Like we're the US, there's plenty of ways to be creative on rent, like house hacking and stuff like that. So food as well. So I try to minimize eating out, although I am a foodie, so I do like to eat out every now and then. So I would tell myself once a week, I'll eat somewhere nice, not fancy, not $50 meals, but just somewhere nice, right? 10, 15, $20 meals, just once a week. I think, treating yourself out after a long week of hard work, especially for me, I'm doing a full-time job in YouTube, treating myself out once a week, twice a week, but that's fine. So food, I try to keep that minimal by eating at home. And then transportation now, especially with COVID-19, we're essentially not driving too much. So if you can minimize driving around too much, just wasting gas,
Right.
just focus on the big three. I think if you focus on the big three, all the materialistic things will follow. Like you'll start to rewire your brain to sort of know what things are. Anyway, I'm losing.
All good things. Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with your sentiment that we should focus on the big expenses, like the expenses that everyone spends money on. For me, with housing, luckily, I am in like a lower cost of living area compared to all of the other areas around me. Even though I live right outside New York City, I'm not in like Hoboken, I'm like in kind of a more suburban area. And because of that, my mortgage payments are much lower and my HOA fee is much lower. So that's something that I was looking for before I bought this property. And I eventually want to make this a rental. I'm hoping to maybe rent it out to like the resident physicians who go to the hospitals that are near this area, because this would be like a really great place to rent. I'm hoping to make it like a furnished rental eventually, like take the liabilities, like my furniture that I spent money on or the TV that I spent money on, and then like use that to be able to charge like a higher rent. Obviously not like price gouge or anything, but to charge a higher rent that's like fair for a furnished apartment. In terms of transportation, right now I borrow my dad's car, so I don't have a monthly car payment. I pay my dad back for like car insurance and tolls, and other than that, I pretty much eliminated the card, like the travel expenses, I do use a credit card for gas, which gives me 4% back on gas. So that's really, yeah. So thanks. That's how I save money on gas too. And I also have an app that helps me find like the cheapest gas station. So those two combined keep my gas expense really low. And then in terms of food, I'm really fortunate because right now my partner is paying for like the groceries, so I don't have to pay for groceries. And then we split costs whenever we go out to restaurants. And like you, I'm also a foodie and we like to go eat out a lot. And that's one of the things that, you know, makes us feel happy in our lives. And like I said before, I think that finances should be something that's empowering, not necessarily something that makes you feel like you're depriving your life. And this entire F.I.R.E journey is supposed to be empowering. So I'm a little bit more liberal in terms of like going out to eat. But because of that, I actually got the American Express Gold credit card, not a paid advertisement. And that card like gives me 4 points back for like grocery store purchases and restaurants, and those are two really big expenses. And we just charge all the grocery expenses and the restaurant expenses to that card, and then
So, you know, for any of my current subscribers, like they know I'm sort of deeply in love with the cryptocurrency technology. You know, obviously, I would emphasize and highly recommend. I can't say that enough. Like that, people definitely do fundamental research, right? Because you know, there's going to be a lot of articles in the space that like tell you, you know, invest $1,000 here and you become a millionaire. Like I hate those articles, to be honest. Like I don't even read them. So I only read things that are fundamental in value. So obviously for me, I started my FIRE movement in stocks. I bought a lot of, I handpicked stocks. So luckily for me, I invested in 2017 where any stock you picked was pretty much a win.
Right? Yeah. We were definitely riding the bull market, right?
Yeah. So I bought every stock that you can think of, Bank of America, like big name blue chip stocks, right?
Right.
Everyone was a winner. Everyone, you know, like there were no losers pretty much like in the blue chip space. So, but also in 2017 was also when I found out about crypto as well. So I started to liquidate my stock holdings and transfer it over to cryptocurrencies. But obviously back then my knowledge of cryptocurrencies was definitely a lot different to what I have now. Because back then it was all technical, price swings and all that stuff. But right now I'm more of I have a much more fundamental base in cryptocurrencies. So obviously, you know, we're a personal finance channel, but we don't give financial advice. But obviously, I wouldn't advise people to do what I do. You know, I would encourage people to do their own research. And you know, I would say just a portion of your portfolio, right? Just have some allocation to it, maybe 1%, 2%. Obviously, like the younger you are, let's say you're in your 20s, then obviously you have the risk appetite to pursue something a lot higher than a 5-6%, right? Maybe allocate 10% of your portfolio to the space. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sort of a big chunk of my portfolio is in the cryptocurrency space because that for me is it reminds me of the internet. Because the internet in 1994, 1995, people started to learn about it, like, and then we ultimately had the internet bubble, is what we call it now, right? So we had the internet bubble around 2000. So year 2000 was the internet bubble. And to put things into perspective, right? Just to give you guys a perspective, the internet bubble mostly was U.S. stocks, right? Because a lot of countries like UK and Russia, besides institutional investors, like people like normal civilians, they typically don't buy U.S. stocks. They buy stocks of their country. But just to give you guys a perspective, that bubble was $7 trillion. You know, so that was a $7 trillion bubble. And then now we're talking about a new technology, blockchain, cryptocurrencies. You know, our market cap as a whole. I'm not just talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about the whole space. Our market cap is just, I believe, right around 300 billion. Right. Just to put things into perspective, you know, like we are at 300 billion market cap, and then the internet bubble was a $7 trillion market cap. So, you know, the way I think of that is we are nowhere close to hitting bubble territory. Like we first need to breach 1 trillion. So 3x in market cap. So for me, fundamentally, I'm very bullish. And then also just the fact that this is a global phenomenon, right? So now you have a technology where people in the UK, people in Australia, people in countries like Venezuela, right? They have an incentive to invest in a deflationary currency like Bitcoin like this. So I think with that in mind, that this is more of a global phenomenon. You know, hitting a $7 market cap maybe next decade, that should be a pretty conservative number for me, in my personal opinion. So that's why I've sort of allocated my investing strategy to that space.
And I think that's really interesting. You know, I think that Bitcoin is an interesting like hedge against like losing value in the US dollar. Definitely. I think this is where I tend to differ because I haven't done much research on Bitcoin yet. I'm more invested in like US stocks, definitely. And I'm very like lightly allocated in bonds. And the majority of my wealth as of right now is in retirement accounts and in real estate, which is my 1-bedroom condo. So it's not much, but that's typically where I'm at. And my strategy for achieving FIRE is the fact that like if I put my money into an investment account, I typically don't touch it again, you know. And if I don't see that money in like my checking account, I'm not going to spend it. So I think that the biggest thing for me is like paying myself first and putting my money in places that I know I'm just not going to touch it. And obviously just cutting costs wherever I can. So that helps me achieve a pretty high savings rate relative to like where I am right now. Pre-COVID, I was saving about 40% of my income. During this like entire fiasco that we're dealing with you know, our country right now, I'm typically at like a 50% savings rate. I hope that things start going back to normal soon, but like honestly, I don't know if there's going to be new normal. That being said, just because I have a long time horizon, my strategy is typically like aggressive dollar cost averaging, cutting costs, and diversifying.
Right. And I think, you know, just to add a little bit to that, obviously I'm an accountant, so I like to see things in formulas. So obviously, our income statement, we have our revenues and then our costs, right? And then,
Right.
there's two ways to increase that income, and that is increasing your revenue, which is your salary, or decreasing your cost of living, which is your expenses. So obviously, it's a lot harder for people to increase their salary because they can't just demand a 10% increase in salary every year. It's a lot harder. So that's why the FIRE movement, I think, was born, because it's a lot easier to decrease your expenses.
Oh yeah. And I think that I do think that having a more frugal mindset teaches you to value other things in life besides material things. And the thing is, you are wealthy not just in like your monetary wealth, but in your mind as well. And honestly, I think that having like physical, like bodily wealth, spiritual wealth, mental wealth, all are an important part of what makes you wealthy, quote unquote. And it's not just a financial thing; it's like an entire lifestyle based around what you truly value in life. And I think that's the biggest motivation as to why I pursue the FIRE movement. I just want to solidify what are the things that I value in life. And ultimately, it's time to do what I want, time to spend with the people that I love. And yeah, that's like my biggest motivation.
It's okay. And I think, maybe we can end the video with a lot of people like to sort of dive into numbers. I know, some people, they have a certain number in mind, like, what their nest egg has to be between this range and this range before they ultimately move on to not quitting, but like moving on to the next phase of their life. So you have maybe you can expand on what you don't have to give a specific number, but maybe just give a range of what number you're targeting in a range, and then what you plan to do afterwards, and then hopefully maybe how soon, right? What's your goal? Do you have a 5-year goal, or maybe longer, 15 years?
Yeah. So typically in the FIRE movement, people say that their goal is 25 times their annual expenses. So I'm really bad at math, but like if your yearly expenses were $40,000, 25 times of that, I believe, would be like $1 million. I could be wrong. I think it's $1 million, right? 40,000 times 25 is $1 million. So that would be people's like FIRE number, assuming a 4% withdrawal rate. Now, here's the thing, though, is that not everyone's FIRE number is going to follow the same formula. Some people want to have a more luxurious lifestyle, or fat FIRE, and they might find that their like FIRE number might be a lot bigger in order to sustain a more luxurious lifestyle based on a 4% withdrawal rate. Other people might find that they don't want to withdraw 4% and instead they want to withdraw like 3%. So I think that it just depends on you and your lifestyle. For me personally, I consider myself coast FIRE because I don't ever plan on stopping working. I just want to have a career that I am very passionate about. Not that I'm not passionate about healthcare, but I'm more passionate about health policy and making like a systemic change. I actually just signed up for a policy course. So yeah, so my FIRE number might be a lot less than like the typical formula, So what about you? Like, how do you see your FIRE goals?
For me, I'm definitely not waiting until I have $40,000 of what we call passive income. For me, my number is roughly around between $1,000 and $1,500 a month. For me, that's my number. Obviously, post inflation, right? Because every year that number is inflation. But yeah, after inflation, I think $1,000 to $1,500 a month would be my number, because for me, like you said, we've talked about this many times already in this video, but for me, time, right? So I can easily wait until my late 40s and early 50s, and I can probably accumulate passive income of 80, 90, 100, 120K, right? I mean, it's endless, right? So I can either do that, or like, what's, for me, the way I think is like, what's the lowest number I can go, right? The lowest number I can go where I can just go all out, run full sprint, and pursue my passion. And for me, that absolute lowest number is $1,000 a month, right? So I think with $1,000 a month, obviously not a luxurious lifestyle, but for me, that is the lowest number that I can go where I can start to run and pursue the next phase of my life, which is hopefully growing this YouTube channel, personal finance brand, as well as traveling the world. So I believe you call that coast FIRE. I don't really know the terminologies too well, but yeah, for me, I don't require a large sum of money.
So thanks for having me, Franz. Definitely check out Franz's channel on Project Influencers, everybody, if you haven't already. And thank you so much, YouTube, for like continuing to support my channel as well.
Yes, and then also, thank you for the first collab. Obviously, this is our first collab, so there's gonna be a lot of technical difficulty. So thank you, John and FIRE YouTube channel. Again, I'll leave his Again, I'll leave his YouTube link down below, so you guys can see his channel. Also, for anyone that has stayed until the end of this video, because I know not many people watch the whole YouTube video, but for anyone that has stayed until the end of the video, maybe write down in the comment section if you want us to do another collab and what topics you want us to diversify into. Maybe we can talk about specific topics like specific stocks, airline stocks, credit cards.
Yeah, definitely. I have like a ton of stuff to talk about.
But for anyone that has made it to the end of the video, you guys are like our most loyal subscribers. Because like not a lot of people, not a lot of people make it to this end. But for any of you guys that have done that, thank you guys.
Yeah, shout out to my 4 subscribers.
The 4 subscribers, like basically closest friends and family that watches all of our videos.
Right?
So you guys, thank you, and just leave a comment
everyone
on the next topic, and we'll see you guys hopefully another collab later on this year.
Thanks everyone. Have a good one. Bye.